Hey everyone, welcome back to Tonal Trend Spotter Stats. Chord types musicians use most, part 2. If you haven't watched the first video, you should, but still probably watch this one first, since it has 3 graph lines, which means it's way cooler. But not as funny though, because by popular request, I will be limiting any jokes, and there will be no lame MS Paint drawings to distract from the data this time. But yeah, check out the first video too if you run into any questions about why I organized the data like I did, or if you have any other questions. It's probably covered in the intro to that earlier video. All right, here we go. You can see that now we separated the data into 3 tonal categories represented by these 3 colored lines. Red for major, green for minors and modes, and purple for the blues rock, sometimes also referred to as the super mode. And yeah, for now, just take note that I did end up having to lump the songs that weren't in one of these 3 categories in with the green minor tonality line. I'm talking about songs in modal tonalities like Dorian and Mixolydian and stuff. But yeah, since these songs only constituted about 1% of the songs, and also because most non-major and minor modes are just a note or 2 away from minor tonalities anyway, I wouldn't worry about it too much. But yeah, let's start here by following the graph line that represents songs in major keys. Alright, we got the 1 chord at 100% usage, then down to the 2 chord, used in close to half of the songs. Even more down to the 3 chord, which is used in a little bit more than a quarter of songs. And then up to our 4 and 5 chords, 4, 5, with our 5 winning by just about a half a percentage point. And yeah, so remember how it was the other way around in the last video's graph? Like how the 4 chord beat out the 5 chord because of all the flat 7s in the blues rock tunes being used in place of the 5 chords? Well, yeah, this red line here is just the songs in major diatonics, so now it's back to where you'd expect it to be. Alright, now down to the 6 chord, still in 4th place overall. And then again we plummet down to the 7th diminished chord triad. And for extra credit, do you remember from the last video why this chord is so unpopular? That's right, because it can also be found as the top part of a 5-7 chord. That's why. Here it sounds like this. You know, here's your diminished chord, and here's a 5-7 dominant chord, back to just a triad from the 7th scale degree. And yeah, I mean, people just tend to play 5-7s a lot more than they play just diminished chord triads on the 7th scale degree all by themselves. And yeah, so if you understand that, you get a sticker. Okay, now we're crossing over from the major diatonics into the minor borrowed chord realm. So watch out for demons and orcs and stuff, and also David Gilmour. Okay, not a lot of borrowed 1 guys or borrowed 2s for minor, but the borrowed flat 3 is used about 9% of the time, so that's cool. Borrowed 4s, minor 4s, clocking in around 4%. And by the way, some people call this chord the boy band chord, since it's used a lot in boy band cadences, like, you know, like, ooh, girl. But yeah, there's that. Alright, next, the borrowed minor 5 at around 3% usage has also cleared the flatline major chords like this. I actually did an entire vlog about this chord a while ago, as used by the band Paramore, as well as by James Taylor, which you should check out later if you wish. It's in the Spotter Spots vlog. Okay, up we go to the borrowed flat 6 and 7s, clocking in at about 15% usage apiece. Not bad, and I'm guessing the main reason these chords evened out so well is because of how often they are used together. Usually like this in kind of a cadential fashion, you know, like da-na, bum, bum, ba. Getting back to the 1 there. Okay, now onward to the secondaries, also known as the secondary dominants. But since they sometimes don't resolve down a 5th like they're supposed to, I just like to call them the secondaries and use caps instead of the 5 slashy bits. I mean, use the 5 slashy bits where they are applicable, by all means do, but in the long run, you can call them either, really. I'm not going to make a big stink about it. First, okay, we got to highlight the major 2 chord, like this. I mean, it's almost as popular as the diatonic 3 chord over here. So, I mean, if you haven't been using this chord in your own songs and compositions in major, you should start trying it out, like right now, before it's too late. Next, I want to point out the majorified secondary 3, 6, and 7 chords doing their fair share, before the wastelands of chord obscurity kind of settle in. The major 3 chord, or 5 of 6 as some call it sometimes, is used in about 8% of songs. And the major 6 chord triad, or 5 of 2, is used around 5% of the time. And the major 7th guy, or 5 of 3, is used in about 2% of songs sampled. And speaking of 5 stuffs, remember from the last video how I included, you know, the dominant 1s and the dominant 4s, or 5 of 4 and 5 of flat 7 chords as honorary chord triad types? Well, they clocked in at about 5% and just above 1% usage. Though, in all honesty, they might actually be a little higher, since they are kind of hard to distinguish from their regular major triad selves, if you're not looking for them. So yeah, I might have missed a few in my studies, is what I'm saying. Please forgive me. Okay, but as far as these miscellaneous chords go, it kind of appears like major uses them more overall than minors or blues rock. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to tell down at this level. All I know is that these chords were used enough to make it onto my chart. But yeah, they kind of sound like this. We got our flat 2, you got your flat 5, and then we've got diminished 1, like that. And then we've also got our augmented, gotta have an augie in there. Our augmented 5, which is usually, I mean, it's just kind of like a regular 5, just been augmented, you know, it's a little more spicy there. And it's used usually with the same function. But yeah, it's its own triad. Okay, now let's look at the minors and modes represented by the green line. All right, firstly, the reason the minor didn't bat 100% on its tonic chord here is because, again, I lumped modes in with this line. Mainly I'm talking about Mixolydian or Lydian here. Mixolydian and Lydian have a major chord for their 1 chords, and in hindsight, maybe I should have lumped in the Mixolydian or Lydian songs in with the major instead, but oh well, maybe I'll do that later someday if the need arises to be a percentage point or 2 more accurate. As it stands now, we can still spot the tonal trends just fine in spite of this little complication. Okay, next, this is big, you guys. Check out how in minors and modes, the 2nd and 3rd most popular chords aren't 4s or 5s, but the flat 6 and flat 7 chords, you know, like da, da, bo, bo, bum. Oh, and for all you guys being like, dude, it's redundant to call 6 and 7 chords flat chords when you're already in minor. Well, I realize that, but I just like to call them by their flats so that there's no chance of confusing them with the major diatonics. You know what I mean? I mean, it's also like when we're talking about songs in blues rock or in terms of the super mode, it also comes in handy to speak in these more consistent terms. I mean, it becomes almost essential. So if you're open to seeing it this way, I'd appreciate it very much. Okay, I think the reason this happens, that the flat 6 and flat 7 chords are so popular in their own key, is mainly because in minor keys and modes, 4 and 5 chords are much more finicky about whether they want to be major or minor chords. In other words, whether they want to stay as natural minor diatonics or whether they want to borrow their major selves from the major mode. And this split difference makes all the difference. See, it used to be way back in the day when monks and those people were like trying to first actuate these diatonic systems. 4 and 5 chords in minor Aeolian mode were always minor chords. You know, it'd be like, oh. Again, that's called natural diatonic minor. But then people like Bach and Mozart and those guys started using these new sounds we now call harmonic minor and melodic minor scales, which, if you don't know, are these scales that changed the minor seventh scale degree for the harmonic minor, and then both the sixth and seventh scale degrees for the melodic minor into their major counterparts, which in turn makes the minor 4 and minor 5 chords into majors, and bada bing, bada boom, you're borrowing your chords from the major Ionian mode, just like borrowing tools from Bob Vila, if he was your neighbor, that is. But yeah, one more thing about 4s and 5s being more switchable or borrowable in minor is, if you look closely, you can see that 5s in minor keys like to be major a good chunk more than they like to be minor. And the reverse is true to a fairly similar scale for 4 chords. So yeah, take that for whatever worth you will. I mean, for my part, I think that that's the main reason why music colleges make you play the harmonic minor scale instead of the natural minor scale for your exams and juries, you know, because people use it more. But all right, next, look over here, the borrowed from major minor 2 guy, you know. That chord gets played almost twice as much as the regular diatonic diminished 2 over here. All right. Minor 2. And that's also something you should be aware of as a spotter of tonal trends in music theory and songwriting. Okay, nothing too crazy go nuts about the secondaries in minors and modes. Just a pretty even spread of your major 2s, 3s, 6s, and looks like major chords built on that harmonic minor scale's major 7th scale degree leading tone seem to be pretty well used, wouldn't you say? Interesting, you know, let's listen to it. It's like, you know, minor then 5 of 3, as some people call it. Spooky cool. You should try it sometime if you're a songwriter or a chord arranger. Okay, miscellaneous. Actually, I changed my mind from before, at least for this. Look at the flat 2 chord here. Minors and modes, I'm just loving this chord, almost to the tune of 8% usage. That's pretty noteworthy. Usually you hear it in like Phrygian type sounds next to the root, you know, like kind of like that. All right, the last line we had to explore is the blues rock, funk, hip hop, supermode, etc. purple line. And I don't know why I didn't think to make this line blue, because, I mean, you know, blues rock. But for now, I'll just say that it's because I'm from Minnesota, and so is Prince. And he uses this tonality a lot, so that's why. All right, first thing to mention is that, yes, minor blues tonalities were indeed lumped in with the more major biased blues tonalities. This is why neither major 1 or minor 1 chords reach the top. But the thing is, like, in my humble opinion, songs in blues rock or supermode keys are more like to be considered in the blues rock supermode tonality than they are to be considered specifically major or minor. So that's where they go for now. If someone smarter than me comes along later and convinces me otherwise, I'll change my tune. I'm not too proud. I mean, it was kind of a 60-40 decision anyway. And maybe even someday when I have more data, I'll like do another thing where I separate out minor blues rock into a 4th line. But for now, it really doesn't affect it too much. So let's just get on with our video. All right, mostly we get our 1 chords from the major in blues rock supermode, not a surprise. And then we just nosedive down here to minor 2 and 3. So yeah, not too well used, as you can see. Then we just go back up to the major 4 chord, almost as popular as the 1. And that dips down about 15 percentage points for the major 5 triad. And one more time, that is most likely due to the 5 chord being dropped in favor of the flat 7 chord over here. Like this. I mean, check it out. I haven't really played this for you, but it's like, you know, ba, ba, 5, 4, and 1, ba, 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 or you could do it like this. You know, da, ba, hey, yeah, yeah. Ooh, da, 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 da. Man, my MIDI keyboard spells are just off the hook skills, man. I don't even play keys, man. I'm a guitar player. Anyway, so yeah, over the years, what we see is that bluesers, rockers, funky people, hip-hop people, or any of the genres that use super mode, they started thinking that like that flat 7 chords were just as awesome as 5 chords, maybe even more so. I mean, you can make up your own theories and decisions about why that is. I know I have mine, like kind of like a pendulum swing of the circle of fifths where the dial's being turned back a little bit, and, you know, overtones, all these things. But basically, I'm not trying to tell you what's cool and what's not, just what's trendy and what's not trendy. Okay, minor 6 chord, not a popular blues chord either, but more popular than 2s and 3s over here. And all right, on to minor blues. Here goes the minor 1 chord hovering at like 15% usage, which means basically that around 15% of the time, songs in blues rock are more minor than they are major. And incidentally, I found that it was more often like the funk genre blues songs that in the survey that preferred this kind of more minor 1 to major 1 chord. Just thought I'd point that out. All right, secondary chords in blues, not too common, except the major guy. Major 2 makes his fair share of appearances at a little under 8%. You know, it's like... And last, I want to address something you may have noticed, and that is that overall, the purple line is kind of droopy when compared to the others. Like there might be some chords missing or something. But yeah, I mean, all I chalk that up to is the fact that a lot of the songs in the Rolling Stone 500 survey and the other songs that I put in this category were just like whole songs just jamming on the blues scale and just like 1, maybe 2 chords, where there really wasn't a good justification for picking out more complex chord progressions from the riff motifs. I mean, like there's always implied chord progressions with these kinds of songs, but yeah, most of the time, you know, it's just like, you know, yeah, 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 and you know, like it's like, in my opinion, it's pretty subjective whether we should be labeling all the different proverbial yas that I was just doing as belonging to their own implied chords or not. And that's just my humble opinion. It's not like a fact or anything. Okay, well, that's it. If you want, you can press pause on your player and spend some time playing through this chart with your keyboard, guitar, or oboe. And maybe you could even try out some chords that you don't use so often, right? All right, also, if you would like to transpose to another key other than C so that you can see what the chord types are in the other 12 keys, there's a handy, helpful little transposition chart next to this video as it appears embedded on its watch page at tonaltrends.com proper. So if you're not already watching it there, like if you just found me by YouTube or whatever, click the link below and you'll be directed to the page where you can find that chart. And last, if you like this video, please don't forget to join our mailing list and to press all the buttons that you click when you like things on the internet. I would appreciate it so much. All right, see you next time for another tonaltrends.com music theory and songwriting vlog. Thanks.
Come sabe, jump on it, jump on it, jump on it. Costa, jump on it, jump on it.